Houston's housing market is changing fast, and I know you're wondering, how is it going to affect my plans to move or invest in real estate? Well, my name is RK Rosas, and here at the Community Warriors Real Estate Team, we've sold hundreds of houses in the Houston area, and we've spent thousands of hours researching the market to help our clients make the right moves. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to break down what is going on with the real estate market today, some of the big changes with the Texas economy and how it's going to shape the housing market. And at the end, you're going to get the best advice for your real estate plans coming up. Let's start with what's going on in today's market. So right here, what we're going to see is the year-over-year changes with what's going on in the Houston market. The big thing that I want to look at right here is going to be the total property sales. So this past month, we had 8228 property sales, and that is actually a little bit of a drop off from 8512. So let's say 3.3% less houses have sold this past month compared to the same time last year. Let's compare that to the amount of properties that have sold in the past month prior to that. So we're seeing 8730, and you compare that to 8228. That is, if you calculate it, about a 6% less amount of houses sold this month compared to last month. So one, we're trending down from a year-over-year perspective, and also we're kind of trending down from a month-over-month perspective from August to September. Here's the interesting thing though. You could see here that the total dollar volume is actually flat. So 3.294 to 3.295. So the amount of money being spent on real estate in Houston is nearly identical to what it was last year. That's just because houses are actually a higher price. The average prices are going to be up just a little bit, enough to just bridge the gap for the less amount of houses that we have. Taking a look at it from a month-over-month perspective, you'll see here that it was 3.513 compared to 3.295. Now, just like the month-over-month in total property sales, this is about a 6.2% decrease in total dollar volume. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And this is the big one. This is why it seems like the real estate market is changing a lot, not just in Houston, but a lot of the markets. So the total active listings, you'll see here, there was 39,000 total active listings last year, same time. And you compare that to this year, there's 48,749. So that's nearly 10,000 more properties in the market right now still available compared to the same time last year, and that is a 25% increase. Now that is really huge. And when you think about supply and demand, having a larger inventory just means that we're kind of moving towards a market where maybe it may feel like prices will go down. Who knows, right? And let's kind of compare that to the month over month. Then we see 48,774 compared to 48,749. So literally like 25, was it? Yeah, like 25 houses or 25 properties still available. So it's pretty flat. I mean, it's nearly identical amount of active listings. So compared to last month, it's even like the listings are not dropping down. So we're kind of remaining flat for the amount of inventory that we have right now. So that's what's going on with this. I do want to talk a little bit about the mortgage rates. So if we're talking about this month right now, so as of recording this, it's October 2024. So you can see here that right now we have 6.44% mortgage rates, which is a pretty big difference compared to the same time last year. So October is going to be 7.6%. So it's over 1% decrease in the mortgage rates, but you know, it's kind of hard to tell like where the actual numbers are. So we'll kind of dive into that in a little bit. But for the sake of comparing it to the market, at this time, this is September's numbers, we were actually at the lowest our interest rates have been in over a year. So 6.08 was the lowest. The next lowest was the same thing around February. So it's been a year since we've had interest rates that were this low. I mean, it's a really big drop. So when you take a look at the mortgage rates, demand really should have shot back up, but you can see here, it really, I mean, we still have a lot of listings on the market here. I do want to put things a little bit in perspective. So let's take a look at the mortgage rates at the same time last year. So same time last year. So we're going to talk about September last year, which was about 7.3% interest rates. And compared to the same time, we were at about 6.1 or so. Let's just say 6.1. So at the time last year, a 7.3% interest rate for a 350K house, 5% down, was just about $3,400. If you bought the exact same house, same price at 6.1, that's one, two, three, nearly $300 less. So you're saving $300. For a lot of people, $300 makes a big difference. So it should have generated a bit more demand, but it really isn't making that big of a difference. And when you want to compare it to where we're at now, as we're recording this, we actually had the mortgage rates kind of jump up a little bit, all the way up to 6.4. Now this isn't a big difference compared to this past month, right? So 3,200, what was it? 3136 to 3200. So yeah, not a big difference, right? Just a little over $60-$70 a month, but still it's an uptick. And you see with interest rates coming up, demand already still not in a good place. We'll even compare it to where we're at with mortgage applications, and it's also it's also not really too promising. Right here we've got the mortgage application, just kind of where we're trending, how many people are applying for mortgages. Just this past month, we actually had the largest decrease in applications for a while. This is about a year span, right? So when you see things like this, you see that mortgage applications are dropping down. You see that we're trending up on the mortgage rates, and even though we're at lower mortgage rates compared to the same time last year, we still are having less property sales from the same time last year, where people are saving $300, $400, $500 a month. They still aren't buying as many houses as they were last year. It's understandable to feel that things are bleak, but there are a few other factors that I do want to share to really help with those decisions for you moving forward, because this is going to make a big difference when you see them. So right here, Texas A&M actually puts out a monthly report about the economy and real estate specifically, and I love taking a look at the numbers because it's going to give you some of the leading indicators, and it may really affect what people do with their real estate moves. So the big thing that I want to look at here, well, there's two actually. The first one is going to be Texas payroll and jobs. So right here, Texas payroll rebounded is the headline. 78,000 workers were added to the workforce in Texas. And the really big thing is that out of those 78,000, Houston right here accounted for 32.3 thousand jobs out of the 78. So if you do the math, I already did it, I don't have to write it all up. It is 42% of new jobs came specifically to Houston. So this is a positive sign, right? That things are getting a little bit better for Houston. And there's one other thing I wanted to share about Texas A&M's report, and it's going to be right here, single family permits. So what this is how many houses are being built, how many new homes are getting started. So this single family starts. Right here, Houston, it says Houston grew by 7.3%. So that means that there were 7.3% more houses being started just this past month compared to the month prior, which is, I mean, it's a pretty big number. And this one right here, it even says that Houston accounted for 35.7% of the state's total starts. So to put that in perspective, you'll see here that Houston grew 7.3%, Dallas also grew, but Austin and San Antonio did not grow. They actually built less houses or started on less houses, and Houston covers over a third of the houses in the entire state of Texas are being built in Houston. So these are two things that really put things a bit more into perspective, right? Because the people that are developing properties and the builders, they are in it to make money. And builders are very conservative about what projects they take on and start, especially in tougher economies, because too many houses is the reason that the market crashed back in 2008. They are really trying not to replicate that. But these people here in Houston are pretty bullish and positive about making these houses more houses than any of the other metropolitans for some reason. And I'd bet that we have a little bit of a glimpse with seeing that there are more jobs coming to Houston. And I'm predicting that things are really going to pick back up in these next couple of months. I always like to share this. Now, this right here is going to be the market activity snapshot, and this will paint a bit of a bigger picture and really tie into why the market changing still doesn't make that big of a difference. So this monthly activity snapshot, we're going to talk about the amount of listings here. This is for single families. You'll see here that single family active listings is up. It's 28.1%. So this is single families. The other one was total properties. So very similar, 28. Other one was 25%. So there are more houses. But when you look at it here, there are more pending properties on the market. So about 23.3% more pending properties. So despite there being more properties available on the market, the demand is actually a bit higher, which will kind of offset this big growth in inventory if it still continues to keep up. And right here, this is the thing that validates why more builders are still starting new construction homes, and why I also feel that there's still a lot of demand, and why things changing aren't going to make the biggest difference when it comes to real estate here. And this is going to be listing views. So this is a very, very early indicator of demand. And you'll see here that the black line is going to be 2024, so this year, and then the yellow line is 2023. Now you'll see here there's a big increase in the amount of properties being viewed online. And a lot of people viewing properties is really the start of their process when it comes to their real estate journey. People really start to look at properties 3, 6 months, sometimes even a year out from whenever they're purchasing. And right over here, you'll see that that number is going up. And typically during a time when the demand and views should be going down. You'll see here the yellow line is showing orange, yellow, orange, whatever, colorblind. The orange line is showing that demand and the listing views actually sinks down a little bit all the way up until December when people get started again. But we see a bump up in the amount of views. Interesting, right? A bump up in the amount of views. You see here that more houses are being started by builders, and there are a ton of jobs coming here to Houston specifically. Now these numbers right here that we shared about the property sales being 3.3% down, the amount of active listings increasing, they don't seem as scary. It actually tells a little bit of a different story. So now that we're at the end, I've got some really big advice that's going to tie all of this together. For my buyers, there are plenty of listings in the market. Demand is being pent up, and a lot of people still not feeling like they're ready to act. So my advice to you is get ready. Get ready past just looking at properties online, but you really want to get ready by getting your finances straight. So getting a pre-approval, even if it may feel a little bit early, it costs you $0. And then in the thought that it's going to hurt your credit, I mean, the benefits of knowing how much you can afford, or if you need to take additional steps when it comes to your finances, will greatly outweigh the little minor inquiry that you'll get on your credit. That credit bumps up immediately, especially if you're not ready to buy. So get pre-approved, get your finances straight, really get an understanding of where you plan on moving. So Houston is huge, and you don't want to be in between Katy and Cypress and Sugar Land and the city of Houston. When it becomes time to ready, you really want to narrow that range down, get your finances right, because you really will want to pull the trigger as quickly as possible. Of course, don't rush into the situation, but there are houses out there that you may even be able to buy right now that you are in an amazing window of opportunity to steal, like literally steal. Right here, this house that we took a look at recently actually is about $50,000 off of what it should be, because there just isn't as much people pulling the trigger, even though there is a lot of pent up demand. So this is about $50,000 less. And if we look at this, I would say about 3-6 months from now, and if you plan on buying this exact house 3 to 6 months, it'll probably be around $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 more than it is right now. because you weren't ready. So if you have everything set up and you end up finding a good deal, I would jump on it. For my sellers, okay, it is very competitive for you. As you guys have seen, there are a lot more single family homes being started. So you are not only competing against a lot of other resale homes, you are also competing against a huge group of builders that a lot of the buyers will be leaning towards. So you really, really want to be competitive. There are 3 things that you should do if you plan on selling now or in the near future. First thing is you need to price your home aggressively, or at least at the bare minimum along with the market. What you don't want is you don't want to say, hey, you know, I know the properties are selling for $500,000 here. I know people are going to negotiate. Let's just try to do like $525 and we'll work our way down. That is wrong, because think about it. Think about it like a Google search, right? Let's say you search for a home, but you're searching on Google and you are on page 2. Who is looking at your home? No one. Like not a single person is looking at something on page 2. Now, when there are a lot of houses to compete against and you price yourself out of that equation, you are going to be on page 2, page 3, and no one is even going to look at your houses. And we are seeing this a lot. So you want to at least price it where you are on page 1 and where you are on the radar of a couple of the buyers that are still actually looking at houses now. Be competitive. Number 2, so you may want to consider even upgrading the house a little bit, or at least touching it up so it is competitive, and also doing a couple of those deferred maintenance items are going to make a big difference. Because think about it, like I said, you are competing with a lot of new construction houses, so you'll want to, from the buyer's perspective, be comparable, especially if you're going to be around the same price. And a lot of sellers are going to be doing the same thing, especially if you want to command premium pricing. Now, let's say you don't want to do that, or you're just not in the position to make those upgrades. There are little things that you can do, things like just touching up paint, things like changing light bulbs, things that a good realtor will tell you, which is going to be my 3rd piece of advice. Then the best thing that you should do if you plan on selling is really price aggressively and price within the market, like I said earlier. Now, it sounds like it may be the best decision to possibly wait, but honestly, it really is going to be case by case, because let's say you're buying at the same time. If you're buying at the same time and you may be able to take advantage of a much better market, let's say you are upsizing or you're moving into a different place and you find a really, really good deal, sometimes it makes sense to go into a market with a bit less demand for your property, because then you get to take advantage of that window as a buyer on the other side. So don't think of it so one-sided when it comes to being a seller, especially if you're doing both at the same time. Now let me explain demand in something that'll make total sense. Okay, so let's say we got this can of Coke right here, right? And this is demand. And there are a couple of indicators, things like new jobs, more people coming in today's market. We have things like mortgage rates getting better. Now you feel and you know that in this can, there is a ton of pent up demand. Whether you're buying or selling, something is going to cause this can to pop. For a lot of people, that may be waiting out until after the election. For a lot of people, that may be waiting out until the interest rates come down. For a lot of people, it may even just be the standard seasonal aspects of moving, which is just waiting until school is over. But whatever it is, that demand is here and it is really pent up. And once 1, 2, or 3 of those things happen, then of course the market changing will mean something totally different.